So the Xiaomi 14 Ultra is over a year old at this point, and I thought it's gonna be nice to just make one last review of it after a year, as I know there's gonna be a lot of you looking for this phone specifically, now that it's not anymore the main flagship, meaning that the price could be much lower. And thanks to this, you can get a really good device at a much better price. But after a year since its release, and several updates, and knowing how the competition is in 2025, how do I rate this smartphone? I made plenty of videos for the Xiaomi 14 Ultra, and I'm not gonna go into every specific of this phone. Rather, I wanted to talk about the real usage experience of what this phone offers, what is really good about this phone, and the not so good parts about it. So the first thing that is very good about this phone, even 1 year later, is the hardware is still gonna be amazing in 2025. Even when compared to the competition with newer chipsets, it's still gonna be an amazing piece of a device. Just because there is a new Xiaomi 15 Ultra or Samsung S25 Ultra or any other smartphone, doesn't mean that the last year's model is suddenly just not a good smartphone anymore. The Xiaomi 14 Ultra with its Snapdragon 8 Gen 3 is still gonna be a blazing fast phone in 2025. And it's still gonna be better than most of the smartphones on the market. It's still gonna be the flagship from 2024. So, while you can get a stronger phone with the newer releases, it is just much more powerful than most people will need. So the hardware internals of this phone are still incredible. If we're talking about the cameras, the performance, or the screen, all of that is still gonna be top notch, and in many case scenarios, it's gonna be just as good as the 2025 models. So in terms of hardware, I still feel like it's still top notch. There isn't gonna be much of a difference if you go to the newer one. So if you already have the Xiaomi 14 Ultra or are thinking about it, I would definitely go for it. Or if you already have one, I would stick with it because I don't feel like it's just a huge generational leap in the 2025. The Xiaomi 14 Ultra now runs on the HyperOS 2, and I did upgrade this phone to the HyperOS 2, and I have to say I have a mixed feeling about it. It does feel very quick, snappy, everything just feels very nice. The user interface is really smooth, animations, everything is just perfect, and the connectivity with other devices is still amazing. But I do feel like with the Xiaomi phones, from MIUI 14 to Xiaomi HyperOS and now to HyperOS 2, I feel like I'm losing a little bit on the customization. From the MIUI 14, when I changed to HyperOS on my older phone, I kind of wish I could return back to MIUI 14. There were things that I just didn't like in terms of the design. And I know it's just a personalization thing. I do feel like a lot of people are gonna feel that, especially if you're upgrading from one HyperOS to another. HyperOS 1 did change a lot of things that I liked about the MIUI 14 that I didn't like so much in the HyperOS. It did add things, but it also did delete a lot of things that I enjoyed from the previous model. And the same thing happened with the HyperOS 2. I did upgrade it to HyperOS 2, thinking that it wouldn't change too much in terms of personalization, only to find out that the grid, for example, is no longer the same aspect ratio, leaving a lot of dead space and having to rearrange my grid. Also, different things that I loved, like the charging animation when you charge the phone, is no longer the same. And I know a lot of people are gonna say it is just a visual thing, but I just feel like it doesn't look as good anymore, and it just doesn't feel satisfying. When I used to charge with the HyperOS, the animation would be on the black screen, so an always on display with like this charging animation. Now whenever you plug it in, the screen goes on, and the charging animation, depending on your background, might be actually really hard to read. For example, in my case, even with a basic HyperOS background, I have to say it's pretty hard to read when you actually plug it in. It's just a visual clutter, and the writing doesn't actually separate too much from the background, which would be fine if the animation was different, but if the background was black, like an always on display. But because now it's actually going into the background and then having the animation, it just doesn't look the same. It just doesn't look satisfying, and I wish I could turn it back, and I wish I could change the things. And I feel like with HyperOS 2.0, I feel like a lot of changes that they have here, I just feel like I wish I could change it back to HyperOS 1. And I'm not talking about the security, but much rather the personalization. Same thing with the fingerprint unlock. Before, the fingerprint unlock would actually be a colorful, like for example blue, but now it's actually just a grayed out version of it. It's no longer the blue animation of unlocking the phone, it's now like a grayish, transparent kind of a vibe, and I know it's pretty nice, but I wish I had the option to change it to the colorful one. because I prefer the blue one. And this is my issue with the HyperOS 2. It's not actually the way it works, because I feel like it works pretty fine and it's smooth, everything looks really good. But I just feel like the personalization, I kind of wish they not only added things, but also not delete the older things. And I feel like they're deleting things when they change to a new one, and then you have no option to have what you already had. And I just feel like with every update with Xiaomi, I'm losing much of the personalization that I loved from the MIUI 14, then I lost some things with the HyperOS 1, and I lost more things with the HyperOS 2, now meaning that with every update, I love the MIUI 14 personalization in terms of like the fingerprint unlock or the charging animation, always on display, and my favorite super wallpapers, but with every update, I just feel like I lose a lot of it to the point where it's no longer the way I would love it to be. And it's still usable, it's still gonna work great, I just feel like it's not anymore the way I would like it to be. And I know it's gonna be something that if you already personalize, for example, your HyperOS 1 system, and you update to HyperOS 2, you're gonna be disappointed for that couple of days. You're gonna get used to it, but you're gonna be disappointed. And I just wish that was not the case. One thing that I am still a little bit disappointed in terms of the Xiaomi 14 Ultra is while I love this phone for what it is, and I love its performance, its camera, overall usability is amazing, and I really love this phone. I've been really enjoying using it. I really don't like the battery on it. Ever since I came from Xiaomi 13T Pro, which was by no means a great phone in terms of battery life, it's not only slower to charge, which is no problem for me as those charging speeds are incredibly fast, so it's not a problem, but the battery itself, I just feel like it's draining so fast. And I kind of got used to it, but I still feel like it's draining too fast for what I would like it to be. And even in a heavy usage travel situation with a GPS on, it still holds up for the whole day. But I just feel like I kind of wish it was holding a little bit better. And while the cameras are amazing, they do drain the battery a lot, like quite a lot. I think it just comes with huge sensors, huge capabilities, really good hardware, meaning that it's gonna drain a lot of battery, and you can definitely feel it when you start shooting videos, photos, especially on adventures. You can't really drain it much quicker. But like I said, it's comparable to other Xiaomi phones, but I just feel like it would feel so much better if it just felt a little bit better. It just feels like it's draining too fast. And last but not least, I feel like the cameras on the back are still incredible in 2025. While there is more competition for it and just better competition, a lot of phones like the Vivo X200 Pro really up their game with their software and hardware in terms of camera. I feel like the Xiaomi 14 Ultra is still holding up really nicely. It's still a great smartphone photography phone with the capabilities of an incredible setup of cameras, and with the hardware and software really taking advantage of both. So for example, in the low light, the 1-inch sensor is just incredible. At times you can take photos with no weight, just instant click, even in a really dark environment. That would not be possible on other smartphones. And even the Xiaomi 15 Ultra doesn't have the variable aperture on the main camera sensor, meaning that you cannot change the aperture and you cannot close and open up the eye depending on the lighting situation. And you cannot have that nice star effect from the sunlight, but also just for maybe like if you're shooting videos and you wanted to have a little bit slower or faster shutter speed, maybe you wanted to have a different effect, you could do this. But on the Xiaomi 15 Ultra, it's no longer there. While it's still a 1-inch sensor, it doesn't have the variable aperture. So you do gain some and lose some. So in my opinion, it's still a really capable, really good smartphone for photos and videos. You can shoot in JPEG and RAW, you can shoot in 4K 60 frames per second, even in a log format, and you can shoot in 4K 120 frames per second on the main camera sensor. Incredible piece of hardware for photo. One of my favorites in 2024. I would say for many it's going to be the best of 2024, and it's still going to hold up really nicely in 2025, with some phones being just closer to it, either really competing with it or just slightly above it. Or in some cases it's going to be having some features better and some not as good. But other than that, the camera performance is still incredible on the Xiaomi 14 Ultra. So the Xiaomi 14 Ultra is still my daily driver for 2025, and I don't really feel like I have the need to change this phone, as at the moment I feel like it's performing amazingly good and it's a great flagship device. There are things that I would love to have improved, and there are things that I wish were a little bit better. And while this video is not a comparison to Xiaomi 15 Ultra, I would have to say that they kind of fixed the battery issue, but not really, because they just upgraded it a little bit compared to the China model, which has a 6000 mAh battery. So in my opinion, if you already have the Xiaomi 14 Ultra, it's a great phone to still have with you in 2025. Or if you're looking for a smartphone that is a flagship level of device and maybe it's a little bit cheaper than it was last year because there's a newer model, then this is definitely a great pick. It's definitely an amazing smartphone and it's one of my favorites from 2024, and I'm still so happy with it on the daily usage, and on the adventures with the smartphone for photos and videos, it's incredible. So if that is what you're looking for, I can highly recommend it. And if you maybe want to save a little bit of cash on a flagship, then this is definitely a great choice. If you have any more questions about the Xiaomi 14 Ultra, let me know in the comment section down below. With that being said, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. I hope you guys enjoyed this video once again, and I'll see you next time.